tonight, before your thoughts begin to scatter, before the silence turns into noise, before the weight of the day tries to follow you into the night, come closer to the fire. Sit down. Let the warmth touch your hands. Let the crackling soften the tight places in your chest. You've been holding so much again, more than you say out loud, more than anyone around you realizes. But here, right now, you don't have to hold anything. Just breathe. Just be. Just let the night wrap around you gently. And as you settle, listen to this ancient whisper that has carried weary hearts through thousands of years. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. Let that be the first thing that reaches you tonight. Not fear, not pressure, not the echo of unfinished tasks. Just this shelter, just this promise, just this rest. Because finally, you've found a quiet place, a safe place, a warm place by the campfire with Jesus. You don't have to earn this peace. You don't have to pretend you're okay. You don't have to explain why your heart feels heavy. You just have to sit and breathe and let Him be near. Tonight, as the flames rise and fall, I want to tell you a story from Scripture, a story from history, a story about people who found peace in nights darker than this one. And yet, God met them. God held them. God carried them. Just like He's carrying you now. Think of David, not the king with a crown, but the young man hiding in caves, running from enemies, sleeping on cold stone floors, whispering prayers into the darkness because he didn't know if he would see the sunrise. It was in nights like those, nights when fear pressed against his ribs, nights when he felt forgotten, nights when the world was too heavy, that David whispered the words you heard earlier. You are my refuge, my fortress, my God in whom I trust. He didn't say it because he felt brave. He said it because he wasn't. He said it because he needed God to be the strength he didn't have. Just like you do tonight. And while David whispered those words in the hills of Judah, centuries later, another weary soul whispered the same prayer on American soil. A woman named Harriet Tubman. She walked through forests at night, guided only by moonlight and the quiet voice of God. She led people to freedom with nothing but courage, a worn coat, and a faith that refused to break. When danger closed in, when footsteps echoed behind her, when fear tried to choke her breath, she would stop, close her eyes, and whisper the same truth David whispered. Lord, I'm trusting you. You are my refuge, different century, different land, same God, same protection, same peace. And now, tonight, by this fire, that same God is with you, the one who guarded David in caves, the one who guided Harriet through the night, the one who has never lost a battle, the one who has never abandoned a single soul who called his name. He is here, right now, with you. So let the fire warm your hands. Let the night soften your breathing. Let your heart unclench. You don't have to run. You don't have to hide. You don't have to fight alone. Just rest. Just listen. Just let Jesus sit beside you in the glow of this campfire. Because finally, you've found peace. And as you rest, let these words settle over you like a blanket. He will cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you will find refuge. Imagine that. Not a distant God, not a silent God, but a God who covers you, a God who shelters you, a God who bends low to protect you, the same God who held David, the same God who guided Harriet, the same God who is holding you now. So breathe again, slowly, gently. Let the fire glow on your face. Let the night be kind to you. Let your soul loosen its grip on everything it carried today. You are safe. You are seen. You are held. And tonight, finally, you have found peace by the campfire with Jesus. And as the fire settles into a softer glow, listen to how the night begins to breathe with you. Slower, quieter, kinder. Sometimes peace doesn't arrive all at once. Sometimes it comes like this. A small warmth, a gentle breath, a reminder that you are not walking through the dark alone. And maybe tonight, you need another story, another voice from the past, to sit beside you in this circle of light. Think of George Washington Carver, the quiet scientist who prayed before every experiment, who walked through the woods at dawn, just to ask God what secrets he had hidden in creation. People saw him as a genius, but he saw himself as a child, holding God's hand. When he didn't know what to do, he would whisper, "Lord, show me your wisdom." And somehow, in the stillness, God always did. Carver once said that every morning, he asked God to reveal the mysteries of the universe. And God answered not with thunder, not with lightning, but with the gentle voice that speaks to those who slow down long enough to listen. The same voice that spoke to David in the caves. The same voice that guided Harriet through the night. The same voice that whispers to you now, through the crackling of this fire. You don't need to have everything figured out. You don't need to know tomorrow's answers. You don't need to pretend you're not tired. Just let the night hold you. Let the fire warm you. Let Jesus sit beside you. In the quiet you've been needing for so long. And as you breathe, hear this promise again. Not as a verse on a page, but as a hand resting gently on your shoulder. He will command his angels concerning you, to guard you in all your ways. Imagine that. Angels assigned to you, walking with you, watching over you, even when you forget to pray, even when you feel too weak to stand, even when the world feels too loud. You are not unprotected. You are not unseen. You are not forgotten. Tonight, in the glow of this campfire, you are wrapped in a peace older than the stars, stronger than fear, gentler than the night breeze brushing past your face. So stay here a little longer. Let the flames dance. Let your heart beat slow. Let your soul remember what safety feels like. Because this moment, this warmth, this quiet, this presence is not an accident. You were meant to be here. You were meant to rest. You were meant to breathe again. And Jesus, He's right beside you. Not far. Not distant. Not waiting for you to be perfect. Just here, by the fire, with you. Finally, some peace. The fire settles deeper now, glowing like a quiet heartbeat in the dark. Steady, warm, unhurried. And maybe you can feel it. That slow unwinding inside you. That gentle loosening of the knots you carried all day. That soft reminder that you are finally somewhere safe. Stay here. Let the night hold you. Let the presence beside you grow even closer. Because peace doesn't just happen. It arrives. It settles. It wraps itself around you. The way a blanket settles on tired shoulders. And tonight, as the flames flicker low, I want to tell you another story. A story about someone who knew what it meant to sit in the dark and wait for God to speak. Think of Elijah, the prophet who stood against kings, who called down fire from heaven, who watched God move in ways that shook the earth. But even Elijah, the bold one, the fearless one, the miracle worker, found himself one night under a lonely broom tree, too tired to keep going, too overwhelmed to pray, too human to pretend he was strong. He whispered, "I've had enough, Lord." And instead of rebuking him, instead of demanding more, instead of asking him to rise and fight again, God sent an angel, not with thunder, not with commands, but with bread. with water, with rest. Eat. Sleep. The journey is too much for you. Even prophets break. Even the strongest collapse. Even the faithful grow weary. And God, He doesn't shame them. He doesn't rush them. He doesn't demand they pretend. He simply sits beside them in the quiet and restores what life has drained away, just like He's doing for you tonight. And while Elijah rested under that tree, centuries later, another weary servant of God rested under the open sky of the American frontier. Dwight L. Moody, the evangelist who carried the gospel across cities and nations. People saw the crowds he preached to. They saw the revival. They saw the miracles. But they didn't see the nights when he sat alone by lantern light, exhausted from travel, burdened by the weight of souls, whispering, "Lord, I can't do this without you." Moody once said that the greatest moments of his life were not the sermons, not the applause, not the crowds, but the quiet nights when God met him in stillness and filled him again. He believed that God speaks loudest when the world grows quiet, when the fire burns low, when the night is deep, when the heart finally stops running. Just like this moment, just like now. So let the fire glow. Let the night breathe. Let your soul lean into the stillness. You don't have to be Elijah. You don't have to be Moody. You don't have to be strong. You don't have to be impressive. You don't have to be anything other than present. Because Jesus isn't asking for performance. He's offering presence. He's offering rest. He's offering Himself. And maybe tonight, you need to hear this. Not as a verse, not as a lesson, but as a whisper meant only for you. Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Not someday, not when you fix everything, not when you feel worthy. Now, here, by this fire. So breathe again, slowly, deeply. Let the warmth reach the places inside you that have been cold for too long. Let the presence beside you become the comfort you've been searching for. You are not alone in this night. You are not forgotten in this season. You are not abandoned in your struggle. The same God who fed Elijah, the same God who strengthened Moody, the same God who guided Harriet, the same God who sheltered David, is the God sitting beside you now. Feel the fire. Feel the quiet. Feel the peace settling deeper. Because tonight, finally, you are safe. You are held. You are seen. You are loved. And the campfire with Jesus isn't just a moment. It's a refuge, a shelter, a place where your soul can breathe again. Stay here a little longer. Let the night be gentle. Let the fire be kind. Let Jesus be near. Peace is not leaving. It's only beginning. The fire burns lower now, soft and steady, like a heartbeat that refuses to rush. And maybe you can feel it, that quiet shift inside you, that gentle settling, as if something heavy finally found a place to rest. Stay here. Let the night keep holding you. Let the warmth keep softening the places that hurt. Because peace isn't fragile. It doesn't disappear when you breathe too deeply. It doesn't vanish when your thoughts wander. It stays. It lingers. It waits for you to notice it. And tonight, as the flames glow like embers of grace, I want to tell you another story. A story from Scripture. A story from history. A story about how God meets people in the quiet places where fear and hope sit side by side. Think of Moses, standing on the far side of the wilderness, tired, exiled, carrying the weight of mistakes he couldn't undo. He wasn't looking for God. He wasn't praying bold prayers. He wasn't expecting anything holy. He was just tending sheep, just surviving another day. Just trying to make peace with a life that felt smaller than his calling. And then, in the middle of an ordinary night, in the middle of a desert that felt forgotten, God lit a fire that didn't burn out, a fire that didn't consume, a fire that called his name. Moses, Moses. And Moses answered the only way a tired soul can. Here I am, not strong, not confident, not ready, just present, just willing, just open enough to hear the whisper of God. And maybe that's you tonight. Not strong, not confident, not ready, but here, present, listening. And God, the same God who lit that bush in the desert, is speaking to you in the glow of this campfire, not with thunder, not with demands, but with presence, with warmth, with rest. And while Moses stood barefoot before holy fire, centuries later, another servant of God stood before a different kind of flame. Sojourner Truth, the woman who walked into rooms where she wasn't welcome, spoke truth where truth was feared, and carried the gospel into places where hope had been stolen. She wasn't educated. She wasn't wealthy. She wasn't protected. But she was anointed. She was called. She was held by a God who never leaves the broken, the weary, the overlooked. Sojourner once said that when she felt afraid, she would stop, lift her face toward heaven, and whisper, "Lord, I will trust you. You are all I have." And somehow, in the quiet, God always answered, not with ease, not with comfort, but with courage, with strength, with a fire that burned inside her, the way the burning bush burned before Moses. Bright, holy, unquenchable. And now, tonight, as the fire before you glows low and warm, that same God is near, the God of Moses, the God of Sojourner, the God of David, Harriet, Elijah, Moody, the God who meets people in deserts, in forests, in caves, in fields, in lonely rooms, in sleepless nights, in quiet moments like this one. He is here, with you, for you, beside you. So breathe again. Let the night be gentle. Let the fire be kind. Let your soul loosen its grip on everything it carried today. You don't have to figure out tomorrow. You don't have to fix anything tonight. You don't have to be strong for anyone. Just rest. Just be. Just let Jesus sit beside you, in the glow of this campfire. Because peace isn't something you chase. It's something you receive. Something you sink into. Something that finds you when you finally stop running. And tonight, it has found you. The fire is quieter now. A soft orange glow breathing gently against the night. It doesn't rush. It doesn't demand. It simply burns, steady and patient, the way God's presence rests on a tired soul. And maybe you can feel it, that slow, deep warmth, reaching the places inside you that haven't felt safe in a long time. Let it reach you. Let it soften you. Let it remind you that you don't have to hold everything together tonight. Because here, in this circle of light, you are allowed to rest. You are allowed to breathe. You are allowed to be human. And as the flames whisper low, I want to tell you another story. A story about someone who found God. Not in the noise, not in the crowds, but in the quiet moments. When the world finally stopped spinning. Think of Hannah, the woman who carried sorrow so deep. It felt like it lived in her bones. She prayed year after year, longing for a miracle, longing for a sign that God still saw her, longing for a future she couldn't imagine anymore. People misunderstood her. They judged her tears. They dismissed her pain. But God didn't. God heard every whisper, every tremble, every silent prayer she couldn't put into words. And one night, in the quiet of the temple, God met her, not with thunder, not with spectacle, but with a promise that would change her life and the life of a nation. Her story reminds us that God does His deepest work in the places where our hearts feel the most fragile. And while Hannah prayed in the temple, centuries later, another woman prayed in the quiet corners of American history. Fanny Crosby, the blind hymn writer, whose songs carried millions through their darkest nights. She couldn't see the world around her, but she saw God with a clarity most people never reach. When fear tried to creep in, when loneliness pressed against her heart, she would whisper, "Blessed assurance, Jesus is mine." And somehow, in the stillness, God would fill her with melodies that wrapped around the world like a warm blanket of hope. Different stories, different centuries, same God, same comfort, same gentle presence that sits beside you now in the glow of this fire. So breathe again. Let the night slow your heartbeat. Let the warmth loosen the weight you've been carrying. You don't have to be strong like Hannah. You don't have to be gifted like Fanny. You don't have to be anything other than present. Because Jesus isn't asking for perfection. He's offering peace. He's offering rest. He's offering Himself. And maybe tonight, you need to hear this. Not as a verse, not as a lesson, but as a whisper meant only for you. I am with you. In the quiet, in the waiting, in the places where your heart feels thin. So stay here a little longer. Let the fire glow. Let the night breathe. Let your soul settle into the safety you've been longing for. You are not forgotten. You are not unseen. You are not walking through this night alone. The God of Hannah, the God of Fanny, the God of Moses, David, Harriet, Elijah, Moody, is the God sitting beside you now. And tonight, finally, you have found peace by the campfire with Jesus. The fire is low now, glowing like a quiet memory, soft and steady, as if it knows you needed a night like this, a night where nothing is demanded of you, a night where no one needs answers from you, a night where you can finally stop holding your breath. Let the warmth reach you again. Let the stillness settle deeper. Let your soul feel the safety it has been craving. Because peace doesn't always arrive with a shout. Sometimes it comes like this. A slow glow. A gentle breath. A presence that sits beside you, without rushing you to heal. And as the flames whisper, I want to tell you another story. A story from Scripture. A story from history. A story about how God meets people in the quiet places where their strength ends and His begins. Think of Peter, the fisherman who walked on water, the disciple who swore he would never leave Jesus, the man who believed he was stronger than fear, but fear came anyway. It came in the courtyard. It came in the cold night air. It came in the questions he wasn't ready to answer. And Peter, the bold one, the brave one, the one who promised he would never fall, fell. He denied Jesus. Not once, not twice, 3 times. And when the rooster crowed, the weight of his failure crushed him. He ran into the night, weeping, broken, convinced he had ruined everything. But Jesus, the Jesus who knew Peter better than Peter knew himself, didn't abandon him, didn't replace him, didn't shame him. He made breakfast for him by a fire, a simple fire, a warm fire, a fire not unlike the one before you now. And in the glow of that fire, Jesus restored him, not with anger, not with disappointment, but with love, with gentleness, with a question that healed the deepest wound in Peter's heart. Do you love me? Not, why did you fail? Not, why weren't you stronger? Just love, just grace, just restoration. And maybe tonight, you need to know that the same Jesus who restored Peter is sitting beside you now, in the glow of this campfire. He isn't replaying your failures. He isn't counting your mistakes. He isn't disappointed in your weakness. He is here to restore you, to remind you that you are still His, to remind you that love is stronger than shame. And while Peter warmed his hands by the fire of restoration, centuries later, another follower of Jesus warmed his hands by the fire of purpose. Billy Graham, the preacher who carried the gospel to millions. People saw the stadiums. They saw the crowds. They saw the miracles. But they didn't see the nights when he sat alone in hotel rooms, praying for strength, praying for clarity, praying for God to keep his heart soft in a world that demanded so much from him. Billy once said that the moments that shaped him most were not the sermons, not the applause, but the quiet nights when he knelt beside his bed and whispered, "Lord, keep me close to you." And somehow, in the stillness, God always did. Different stories, different centuries, same God, same faithfulness, same gentle presence. that sits beside you now, in the glow of this fire. So breathe again. Let the night soften your heart. Let the warmth loosen the weight you've been carrying. You don't have to be Peter. You don't have to be Billy. You don't have to be strong. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be here. Present. Open. Resting. Because Jesus isn't asking for performance. He's offering peace. He's offering restoration. He's offering himself. And tonight, in the quiet, in the glow, in the slow rhythm of the fire, he whispers the same truth. He whispered to Peter, "You are still mine. So stay here a little longer. Let the fire glow. Let the night breathe. Let your soul rest in the safety you've been longing for. Because tonight, finally, you have found peace by the campfire with Jesus." The fire is barely more than embers now, a soft red glow breathing in the dark, quiet, steady, like a whisper that refuses to leave you alone in the night. And maybe that's exactly what you needed. Not a blaze, not a burst of light, just a gentle warmth that stays. A warmth that doesn't judge you. A warmth that doesn't rush you. A warmth that doesn't ask you to be anything other than here. Let it reach you again. Let it soften the places inside you that you've kept guarded for too long. Because sometimes the deepest healing happens not in the noise, not in the breakthroughs, but in the quiet moments when your soul finally feels safe enough to breathe. And as the night deepens, I want to tell you another story, a story from Scripture, a story from history, a story about how God meets people in the moments when they feel the most alone. Think of Jacob, the man who ran from his past, ran from his mistakes, ran from the consequences he didn't know how to face. He found himself alone one night, in the middle of nowhere, with nothing but a stone for a pillow, and fear pressing against his chest. He wasn't praying bold prayers. He wasn't expecting a miracle. He wasn't looking for God. But God found him anyway. In the darkness, in the loneliness, in the place where he felt most forgotten. Jacob dreamed of a ladder reaching to heaven, angels ascending and descending, and the voice of God saying, "I am with you. I will watch over you. I will not leave you." And when Jacob woke, he whispered words that echo through the centuries. "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it." Maybe that's you tonight. Maybe you didn't expect God to meet you here. Not in your exhaustion, not in your questions, not in the quiet ache you've been carrying. But He is here. in this moment, in this firelight, in this breath. And while Jacob rested under the open sky, centuries later, another weary traveler rested under the American night. Corrie ten Boom, the woman who survived the horrors of war and carried forgiveness into places where forgiveness seemed impossible. She knew darkness. She knew fear. She knew what it felt like to lose everything and still cling to God with trembling hands. In the years after the war, when nightmares tried to steal her sleep, she would whisper into the dark, "There is no pit so deep that God's love is not deeper still." And somehow, in the quiet, God would meet her, not with explanations, not with answers, but with presence, with peace, with a love strong enough to hold the pieces of a shattered heart. Different stories, different centuries, same God, same faithfulness, same gentle presence that sits beside you now in the glow of this fire. So breathe again. Let the night settle around you like a soft blanket. Let the warmth reach the places you've been afraid to feel. You don't have to be Jacob. You don't have to be Corrie. You don't have to be strong. You don't have to be brave. You just have to be here, present, open, resting. Because Jesus isn't asking you to climb the ladder. He's coming down to sit beside you, to meet you where you are, to whisper the same truth He whispered to Jacob, "I will not leave you, so stay here a little longer. Let the embers glow. Let the night breathe. Let your soul rest in the safety you've been longing for. You are not forgotten. You are not unseen. You are not walking through this night alone. The God of Jacob, the God of Corrie, the God of Peter, Hannah, Fanny, Moses, Harriet, is the God sitting beside you now. And tonight, finally, you have found peace by the campfire with Jesus. The embers glow like tiny stars now, resting quietly in the cradle of the fire pit. Soft, warm, unhurried, the night has settled fully around you. Not heavy, not cold, but gentle, like a blanket laid across your shoulders by someone who knows exactly how tired you are. Let yourself lean into it. Let your breathing slow. Let your heart loosen its grip on everything it tried to carry alone. Because this moment, this stillness, this warmth is not an accident. It's an invitation. And as the fire hums softly, I want to tell you another story. A story from Scripture. A story from history. A story about how God meets people in the quiet places where their deepest fears and their deepest hopes finally speak the truth. Think of Gideon, the man who felt too small, too weak, too insignificant to do anything meaningful for God. He hid in a winepress, threshing wheat in secret, trying to survive, trying not to be noticed, trying to make it through another day without being crushed by the world around him. And then, in the middle of his fear, in the middle of his hiding, in the middle of his exhaustion, God appeared, not with an army, not with thunder, not with overwhelming glory, but with a simple greeting. The Lord is with you, mighty warrior. Gideon didn't feel mighty. He didn't feel brave. He didn't feel chosen. But God saw something in him that he couldn't see in himself. And maybe tonight, you need to hear that too. Not because you feel strong, but because God sees strength in you that you've forgotten exists. And while Gideon wrestled with doubt, centuries later, another unlikely warrior rose quietly in American history. John Wesley Powell, the one-armed Civil War veteran who led the first expedition through the uncharted Grand Canyon. People told him it was impossible. They told him he was too injured, too limited, too broken to survive the journey. But Powell believed that God had not brought him through war only to let fear define the rest of his life. So he climbed into a wooden boat with one arm and trusted God to guide him through waters no one had ever mapped. When the river roared, when the canyon walls closed in, when death felt inches away, he would whisper, "Lord, carry us." And somehow, in the chaos, God always did. Different stories, different centuries, same God, same courage, same gentle presence that sits beside you now, in the glow of this fire. So breathe again. Let the night soften your fears. Let the warmth remind you that you are not as alone as your thoughts sometimes tell you. You don't have to be Gideon. You don't have to be Powell. You don't have to be fearless. You don't have to be extraordinary. You just have to be here, present, open, resting. Because Jesus isn't asking you to conquer anything tonight. He isn't asking you to prove anything. He isn't asking you to be stronger than you feel. He's asking you to sit by the fire with him, to let him speak the truth. Your heart has forgotten. The Lord is with you, not someday, not when you get your life together, not when you feel worthy. Now, here, in this quiet moment. So stay a little longer. Let the embers glow. Let the night breathe. Let your soul rest in the safety you've been longing for. Because tonight, finally, you have found peace by the campfire with Jesus. The night is deep now, quiet in a way that feels almost sacred, as if the whole world has paused, just long enough for your heart to finally catch up with your breath. The embers glow like tiny suns, soft and steady, holding the last warmth of the fire, the way your soul holds the last strength of the day. Let yourself lean closer. Let the glow touch your face. Let the quiet settle into the places you've been afraid to feel. Because this moment, this stillness, this warmth, this presence isn't fragile. It won't disappear if you relax. It won't fade if you breathe too deeply. It's here to stay with you, to hold you, to remind you that you are not walking through this night alone. And as the fire hums softly, I want to tell you another story. A story from Scripture. A story from history. A story about how God meets people in the moments when they feel the most unworthy, the most uncertain, the most undone. Think of Thomas, the disciple who doubted, the one who needed to see the scars, the one who wasn't afraid to admit that his faith felt thin and his hope felt fragile. People call him Doubting Thomas, but they forget that he was honest. He didn't pretend. He didn't hide. He didn't force himself to feel something his heart wasn't ready to feel. And Jesus, gentle, patient Jesus, didn't shame him, didn't scold him, didn't push him away. He came to him. He walked through locked doors, just to reach the one who felt left behind. He held out his hands and said, "Touch my scars. See for yourself. I'm not leaving you in your doubt." And Thomas, the one who questioned, the one who struggled, the one who felt unworthy, was met with a love that didn't flinch at his weakness. Maybe that's you tonight. Maybe your faith feels thin. Maybe your heart feels tired. Maybe you're not sure what you believe anymore. And Jesus, the same Jesus who came to Thomas, is sitting beside you now, in the glow of this fire, not demanding certainty, not demanding perfection, just offering himself, just offering peace, just offering presence. And while Thomas touched the scars of Christ, centuries later, another follower of Jesus touched the wounds of a broken world, Martin Luther King Jr., the pastor who carried hope into streets filled with hatred, fear, and injustice. People remember the speeches. They remember the marches. They remember the dream. But they don't always remember the nights. The long, trembling nights, when he sat alone in his kitchen, head in his hands, whispering, "Lord, I am afraid. I cannot do this alone." And in one of those nights, he heard a voice, not loud, not dramatic, but steady, gentle, like a fire glowing in the dark. "Stand up for righteousness. Stand up for justice. I will be with you." And somehow, in the quiet, God filled him with courage. That didn't come from strength, but from surrender. Different stories, different centuries, same God, same faithfulness, same gentle presence. That sits beside you now, in the glow of this fire. So breathe again. Let the night soften your doubts. Let the warmth loosen the fear you've been carrying alone. You don't have to be Thomas. You don't have to be Dr. King. You don't have to be certain. You don't have to be brave. You just have to be here, present, open, resting. Because Jesus isn't asking you to have perfect faith. He's offering perfect love. He's offering peace. He's offering himself. And tonight, in the quiet, in the glow, in the slow rhythm of the embers, he whispers the same truth he whispered to Thomas. Peace be with you. So stay here a little longer. Let the embers glow. Let the night breathe. Let your soul rest in the safety you've been longing for. Because tonight, finally, you have found peace by the campfire with Jesus. The night is almost completely still now, as if the world itself has curled up beside the fire and decided to rest with you. The embers glow like quiet memories, soft and steady, holding on just enough to keep the darkness warm. And maybe you can feel it, that deep, slow peace that only comes when you finally stop running, finally stop pretending, finally stop carrying everything alone. Let it reach you. Let it settle. Let it wrap around you, like a gentle hand resting on your back. Because this moment, this quiet, this warmth is a gift, a place to breathe, a place to heal, a place to remember that you are not walking through this night alone. And as the fire hums softly, I want to tell you another story, a story from Scripture, a story from history, a story about how God meets people In the moments when they feel the most unseen, the most overlooked, the most forgotten, think of Hagar, the woman who ran into the wilderness, carrying pain she didn't choose, carrying burdens she didn't deserve, carrying a heart that felt invisible to everyone around her. She sat by a spring of water, alone, exhausted, convinced that no one saw her, no one cared, no one knew the weight she carried. But God saw her, God found her, God called her by name, and He spoke words that have echoed through centuries into the hearts of the unseen. You are the God who sees me, not the God who overlooks, not the God who forgets, not the God who waits for you to be stronger, the God who sees, the God who notices, the God who meets you in the wilderness you never asked for. And maybe tonight, you need to know that the same God who saw Hagar sees you now, sees your tiredness, sees your questions, sees the quiet ache you don't talk about. He sees you, and He is near. And while Hagar sat by a spring in the desert, centuries later, another weary soul sat by the waters of the American South. Rosa Parks, the quiet seamstress, whose courage changed a nation. People remember the bus. They remember the protest. They remember the movement. But they don't always remember the night before. The night she sat alone, exhausted from years of injustice, whispering prayers into the quiet, asking God for strength to keep going. When her heart felt worn thin, Rosa once said that her courage didn't come from anger, but from faith, a deep, steady faith that God saw her, God heard her, God stood with her, even when the world refused to. She believed that the God who sees the unseen was the same God who would one day bring justice to the places where injustice had lived too long. Different stories, different centuries, same God, same compassion, same gentle presence that sits beside you now in the glow of this fire. So breathe again. Let the night soften your heart. Let the warmth loosen the ache you've been carrying quietly. You don't have to be Hagar. You don't have to be Rosa. You don't have to be strong. You don't have to be brave. You just have to be here, present, open, resting. Because Jesus isn't asking you to prove your worth. He's reminding you that you are already seen, already known, already loved. And tonight, in the quiet, in the glow, in the slow rhythm of the embers, He whispers the same truth. He whispered to Hagar, "I see you. So stay here a little longer. Let the embers glow. Let the night breathe. Let your soul rest in the safety you've been longing for. Because tonight, finally, you have found peace by the campfire with Jesus." The night has reached that sacred stillness, where even the wind seems to whisper softer, as if it knows that your soul finally found a place where it can breathe without fear. The embers glow faintly, like tiny red stars resting in the ashes, holding on just enough warmth to remind you that light doesn't disappear just because it grows quiet. Let yourself lean closer. Let the glow touch your hands. Let the silence settle deeper into the places inside you that have been waiting for rest. Because this moment, this hush, this warmth, this presence isn't asking anything from you. It's simply here to hold you. And as the fire hums its soft lullaby, I want to tell you another story. A story from Scripture. A story from history. A story about how God meets people in the moments when they feel the most overwhelmed, the most stretched thin, the most unsure of what comes next. Think of Jeremiah, the prophet who carried a message he never asked for, a burden he never wanted, a calling that often felt too heavy for his trembling heart. He wept for his people. He wept for his nation. He wept for the weight that pressed against his chest. Day after day, he cried out, "Lord, I am too young. I am too weak. I am too afraid." And God, gentle, steady God, didn't dismiss his fear, didn't shame his tears, didn't demand he be stronger. He simply said, "I am with you. I will rescue you. I have put my words in your mouth." Jeremiah didn't become brave overnight. He didn't suddenly feel strong. He didn't magically stop hurting. But he kept walking, because God kept holding him. And maybe tonight, you need to know that the same God who carried Jeremiah is carrying you now, not because you feel ready, but because he is. And while Jeremiah wept for his people, centuries later, another weary soul wept for his nation. Abraham Lincoln, the president who led America through its darkest, most divided hour. People remember the speeches. They remember the leadership. They remember the legacy. But they don't always remember the nights. The long, lonely nights when Lincoln knelt beside his bed, face in his hands, whispering prayers for a country tearing itself apart. He once said that he had been driven to his knees by the overwhelming conviction that he had nowhere else to go. And somehow, in the quiet, God met him, not with easy answers, not with quick solutions, but with strength that rose slowly, like dawn after a long night. Different stories, different centuries, same God, same faithfulness, same gentle presence that sits beside you now, in the glow of this fire. So breathe again. Let the night soften your fears. Let the warmth loosen the weight you've been carrying alone. You don't have to be Jeremiah. You don't have to be Lincoln. You don't have to be strong. You don't have to be certain. You just have to be here, present, open, resting. Because Jesus isn't asking you to carry the world tonight. He's asking you to let him carry you. And maybe you need to hear this, not as a verse, not as a lesson, but as a whisper meant only for you. You are not alone in this. I am with you. So stay here a little longer. Let the embers glow. Let the night breathe. Let your soul rest in the safety you've been longing for. Because tonight, finally, you have found peace by the campfire with Jesus. The night has reached that place where even the shadows seem to rest, where the air feels softer, where the silence feels alive with something gentle and holy. The embers glow faintly, like the last heartbeat of the fire, steady, warm, refusing to leave you alone, even as the night grows deeper. Let yourself lean closer. Let the warmth brush your hands. Let the quiet settle into the corners of your heart that you rarely let anyone touch. Because this moment, this hush, this glow, this presence isn't fragile. It isn't temporary. It isn't going anywhere. It's here to stay with you, to hold you, to remind you that you are safe. And as the fire hums its soft, steady rhythm, I want to tell you another story, a story from Scripture, a story from history, a story about how God meets people in the moments when they feel the most lost, the most confused, the most unsure of where to go next. Think of Jonah, the prophet who ran from God, ran from calling, ran from the very thing he was created to do. He boarded a ship to escape the weight of obedience, the fear of failure, the pressure of responsibility. But storms came, waves rose, the sea roared, and Jonah found himself in the belly of a great fish, a place darker than night, a place quieter than death, a place where he could no longer run, from the truth inside him. And in that darkness, Jonah prayed, not eloquently, not perfectly, just honestly. From the depths, I called for help, and you listened. God didn't abandon him. God didn't punish him. God didn't give up on him. God met him in the deepest place he had ever been. And maybe tonight, you need to know that the same God who met Jonah in the belly of the deep meets you now in the quiet of this night, not because you've done everything right, not because you've been strong, not because you've been perfect, but because he loves you, because he sees you, because he refuses to let you drown in the places life has thrown you. And while Jonah prayed in the darkness, centuries later, another weary soul prayed in the depths of American struggle. Frederick Douglass, the man who rose from slavery to become a voice of truth, justice, and freedom. People remember the speeches. They remember the courage. They remember the legacy. But they don't always remember the nights. The long, silent nights when Douglas knelt on wooden floors, hands trembling, whispering prayers for deliverance, for strength, for a future he could barely imagine. He once wrote that the darkest nights of his life were the nights when he felt God the closest, not because the suffering was holy, but because God refused to let the suffering have the final word. Douglas believed that God hears the cries that never make it into words, the prayers whispered through tears, the groans too deep for language, and somehow, in the quiet, God always answered, not with immediate rescue, not with sudden change, but with strength that rose slowly, like dawn after a long storm. Different stories, different centuries, same God, same faithfulness, same gentle presence that sits beside you now in the glow of this fire. So breathe again. Let the night soften your fears. Let the warmth loosen the weight you've been carrying alone. You don't have to be Jonah. You don't have to be Douglas. You don't have to be brave. You don't have to be certain. You just have to be here, present, open, resting. Because Jesus isn't asking you to climb out of the deep by yourself. He's stepping into the deep to lift you, to hold you, to bring you back to breath. And maybe tonight, you need to hear this, not as a verse, not as a lesson, but as a whisper meant only for you. I hear you. I am with you. I will bring you through this. So stay here a little longer. Let the embers glow. Let the night breathe. Let your soul rest in the safety you've been longing for. Because tonight, finally, you have found peace by the campfire with Jesus. The night is almost completely still now, as if even time has slowed its steps, as if the world has decided to sit quietly beside you and let you rest without asking for anything. The embers glow like soft red pearls, breathing gently in the dark, holding on to the last warmth of the fire, the way your heart holds on to the last strength of the day. Let yourself lean closer. Let the glow touch your face. Let the quiet settle deeper into the places inside you that have been waiting for peace. Because this moment, this hush, this warmth, this presence isn't here to test you. It's here to comfort you, to steady you, to remind you that you are not alone in this night. And as the fire hums softly, I want to tell you another story, a story from Scripture, a story from history, a story about how God meets people in the moments when they feel the most broken, the most ashamed, the most convinced that they've gone too far to be welcomed back. Think of the woman at the well, the Samaritan woman who carried a past she didn't talk about, a shame she couldn't shake, a loneliness that followed her, even in the heat of the day. She went to the well at noon because she didn't want to be seen, didn't want to be judged, didn't want to hear the whispers that reminded her of everything she wished she could forget. But Jesus was waiting for her, not by accident, not by coincidence, but on purpose. He asked her for water, but what he really offered was healing, belonging, a new beginning. He told her everything she had ever done, not to shame her, but to free her. And she ran back to her village, not hiding anymore, not shrinking anymore, but shouting, "Come see the one who told me everything I ever did and still loved me." Maybe tonight you need to know that the same Jesus who met her at the well meets you now by the glow of this fire. He knows your past. He knows your mistakes. He knows the things you wish you could undo. And he still sits beside you, still calls you his, still offers you living water for the parts of your soul that feel dry and tired. And while the woman at the well found healing in the heat of the day, centuries later, another weary soul found healing in the quiet of American nights. Helen Keller, the woman who lived in darkness and silence, yet carried a light that changed the world. People remember her achievements. They remember her courage. They remember her brilliance. But they don't always remember the nights. The long, quiet nights when she sat in stillness, hands resting on her lap, whispering prayers, not with her voice, but with her heart. Helen once wrote that though she could not see the world, she felt God's presence more clearly than sight could ever give. She believed that God speaks in ways that reach deeper than sound, deeper than vision, deeper than words, straight into the soul that is willing to listen. And somehow, in the quiet, God always met her, not with explanations, not with sudden miracles, but with a peace that wrapped around her, like warm hands guiding her forward. Different stories, different centuries, same God, same compassion, same gentle presence that sits beside you now in the glow of this fire. So breathe again. Let the night soften your fears. Let the warmth loosen the shame you've been carrying alone. You don't have to be the woman at the well. You don't have to be Helen Keller. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be strong. You just have to be here, present, open, resting, because Jesus isn't asking you to hide your past. He's asking you to let Him heal it. And maybe tonight, you need to hear this, not as a verse, not as a lesson, but as a whisper meant only for you. I know you. I see you. I love you still. So stay here a little longer. Let the embers glow. Let the night breathe. Let your soul rest in the safety you've been longing for. Because tonight, finally, you have found peace by the campfire with Jesus. The night has reached its quietest hour, that deep, sacred stillness, where even the air seems to breathe slower, as if creation itself has paused to rest beside you. The embers glow faintly, soft red circles pulsing in the dark, like the heartbeat of a fire that refuses to leave you alone, even as the world sleeps. Let yourself lean closer. Let the warmth brush your skin. Let the silence settle deeper into the places inside you that have been waiting for gentleness. Because this moment, this hush, this glow, this presence isn't here to judge you. It's here to hold you, to steady you, to remind you that you are safe tonight. And as the fire hums softly, I want to tell you another story, a story from Scripture, a story from history, A story about how God meets people in the moments when they feel the most overwhelmed, the most stretched thin, the most unsure of how to keep going. Think of Naomi, the woman who lost everything: her husband, her sons, her home, her sense of belonging. She walked back to Bethlehem with empty hands and a heart so heavy she could barely lift her eyes. She whispered, "Call me bitter, for the Lord has dealt bitterly with me." She wasn't pretending. She wasn't hiding. She wasn't trying to be strong. She was honest, broken, exhausted. And God, gentle, patient God, didn't rebuke her grief, didn't rush her healing, didn't demand she smile again. Instead, He placed Ruth beside her, a companion, a comfort, a presence that refused to leave. Where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. And through that companionship, through that quiet faithfulness, God rebuilt Naomi's life, piece by piece, breath by breath, day by day. Maybe tonight, you need to know that the same God who restored Naomi is restoring you now. Not all at once, not in a rush, but gently, slowly, tenderly. And while Naomi walked the dusty roads of Bethlehem, centuries later, another weary soul walked the roads of America. Harriet Stowe, the woman whose writing helped awaken a nation's conscience. People remember the book. They remember the movement. They remember the impact. But they don't always remember the nights. The long, trembling nights when she sat by candlelight, heart aching for justice, whispering prayers for a world that felt impossibly broken. Stowe once wrote that her strength came not from certainty, but from the quiet conviction that God sees suffering and refuses to ignore it. She believed that God works through ordinary people who are willing to feel deeply, to care deeply, to love deeply, even when the world feels too heavy. And somehow, in the quiet, God always met her, not with ease, not with comfort, but with courage that rose slowly, like dawn after a long night. Different stories, different centuries, same God, same faithfulness, same gentle presence that sits beside you now in the glow of this fire. So breathe again. Let the night soften your fears. Let the warmth loosen the grief you've been carrying quietly. You don't have to be Naomi. You don't have to be Stowe. You don't have to be strong. You don't have to be certain. You just have to be here, present, open, resting. Because Jesus isn't asking you to pretend you're okay. He's asking you to let Him sit with you in the places that hurt. And maybe tonight, you need to hear this, not as a verse, not as a lesson, but as a whisper meant only for you. I am rebuilding you. I am restoring you. I am with you in this. So stay here a little longer. Let the embers glow. Let the night breathe. Let your soul rest in the safety you've been longing for. Because tonight, finally, you have found peace by the campfire with Jesus. The night is deep now, so deep that even the stars seem to whisper, as if they too have slowed their shining, just to match the rhythm of your breath. The embers glow like tiny red moons, quiet, steady, holding on to the last warmth of the fire, the way your heart holds on to the last threads of hope. Let yourself lean closer. Let the glow soften your face. Let the silence settle into the places you've been afraid to let anyone see. Because this moment, this hush, this warmth, this presence isn't here to test you. It's here to comfort you, to steady you, to remind you that you are safe tonight. And as the fire hums softly, I want to tell you another story, a story from Scripture, a story from history, a story about how God meets people in the moments when they feel the most unseen, the most unqualified, the most unsure of their worth. Think of Mary Magdalene, the woman who carried a past that others used against her, a reputation she couldn't escape, a pain she didn't choose. But Jesus saw her, not the rumors, not the labels, not the mistakes. He saw her heart. He saw her longing. He saw her worth. He healed her. He welcomed her. He gave her a place in a world that had pushed her aside. And on the darkest morning in history, when the world believed hope was gone, Mary was the first to see the risen Christ. Not Peter, not John, not the leaders. Mary, the one the world overlooked, the one Jesus trusted with the first message of resurrection. Go and tell them, I am alive. Maybe tonight, you need to know that the same Jesus who chose Mary chooses you too. Not because you're perfect, not because you're strong, not because you've earned it, but because He loves you, because He sees you, because He knows your name in a way no one else ever has. And while Mary stood in the garden with tears on her face, centuries later, Another woman stood in the gardens of American history. Amy Carmichael, the missionary who rescued children and carried God's love into places where darkness had lived too long. People remember her courage. They remember her sacrifice. They remember her legacy. But they don't always remember the nights. The long, aching nights when she lay awake, body weak, heart heavy, whispering, "Lord, make me your vessel, even when I feel small." Amy once wrote that God doesn't ask for strength, only willingness, only surrender, only a heart that whispers, "Here I am." And somehow, in the quiet, God always met her, not with ease, not with comfort, but with a love that carried her when her own strength ran out. Different stories, different centuries, same God, same tenderness, same gentle presence that sits beside you now in the glow of this fire. So breathe again. Let the night soften your fears. Let the warmth loosen the weight you've been carrying quietly. You don't have to be Mary. You don't have to be Amy. You don't have to be strong. You don't have to be certain. You just have to be here, present, open, resting. Because Jesus isn't asking you to prove your worth. He's reminding you that you already have it. And maybe tonight, you need to hear this, not as a verse, not as a lesson, but as a whisper meant only for you. You are mine, and I delight in you. So stay here a little longer. Let the embers glow. Let the night breathe. Let your soul rest in the safety you've been longing for. But tonight, instead of ending here, let this be the moment where Jesus gently lifts your chin, looks into your tired eyes, and whispers something new. Come, walk with me. There is more peace ahead than you have ever known. Not an ending, not a closing, but the beginning of a deeper rest that is already unfolding inside you. The night has reached that rare stillness where even silence feels alive, where the darkness no longer feels empty, but full of warmth, full of presence, full of something holy that has wrapped itself gently around you. The embers glow like quiet promises, soft and steady, holding on to the last warmth of the fire, the way your heart holds on to the last threads of hope. Let yourself lean closer. Let the glow touch your hands. Let the quiet settle deeper into the places inside you that have been waiting for rest. Because this moment, this hush, this warmth, this presence, isn't here to remind you of what you lack. It's here to remind you of who walks with you. And as the fire hums softly, I want to tell you another story, a story from Scripture, a story from history, a story about how God meets people in the moments when they feel the most uncertain, the most unsteady, the most unsure of the path ahead. Think of Joshua, the young leader, standing at the edge of the promised land, carrying a responsibility he never asked for, stepping into shoes that once belonged to Moses, the greatest leader Israel had ever known. Joshua wasn't fearless. He wasn't unshakable. He wasn't confident. He was human. He was overwhelmed. He was unsure. And God, gentle, steady God, didn't tell him to be perfect. Didn't tell him to be strong on his own. Didn't tell him to pretend he wasn't afraid. He simply said, "As I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will never leave you, nor forsake you." Joshua didn't step forward because he felt ready. He stepped forward because God walked beside him. And maybe tonight, you need to know that the same God who walked with Joshua walks with you now, not behind you, not ahead of you, beside you, matching your pace, holding your steps, guiding your heart. And while Joshua stood at the edge of a new beginning, centuries later, another leader stood at the edge of a new chapter. Booker T. Washington, the educator who rose from slavery to build schools, communities, and hope for generations to come. People remember the speeches. They remember the leadership. They remember the legacy. But they don't always remember the nights. The long, quiet nights when Washington sat alone in dimly lit rooms, praying for wisdom, praying for strength, praying for God to guide him through challenges that felt far bigger than he was. He once wrote that every step he took felt like walking into the unknown, but he trusted that God would meet him in each new place. And somehow, in the quiet, God always did. Different stories, different centuries, same God, same faithfulness, same gentle presence that sits beside you now in the glow of this fire. So breathe again. Let the night soften your fears. Let the warmth loosen the tension you've been carrying quietly. You don't have to be Joshua. You don't have to be Washington. You don't have to be fearless. You don't have to be certain. You just have to be here, present, open, resting. Because Jesus isn't asking you to know the whole path. He's asking you to take the next step with Him. And maybe tonight, you need to hear this, not as a verse, not as a lesson, but as a whisper meant only for you. Take my hand. You don't have to walk alone anymore. So stay here a moment longer. Let the embers glow. Let the night breathe. Let your soul feel the safety of being led, not pushed. Because tonight, instead of ending with rest, Jesus gently rises, extends His hand toward you, and invites you into a peace that moves with you, a peace that doesn't stay by the fire, but walks beside you into whatever tomorrow holds. Not an ending, not a closing, but the beginning of a journey you no longer have to take alone. The night is so still now that even the trees seem to be listening, their branches resting quietly, as if they too have found peace. In the glow of the fading fire, the embers pulse softly, like tiny red breaths, steady and warm, holding on just enough to remind you that light doesn't need to be loud to be real. Let yourself lean into this moment. Let the quiet wrap around you. Let your shoulders drop in a way they haven't in a long time. Because this moment, this hush, this warmth, this presence isn't here to push you. It's here to walk with you, to steady your steps, to remind you that you don't have to move alone. And as the fire hums its soft rhythm, I want to tell you another story, a story from Scripture, a story from history, a story about how God meets people, not only in their stillness, but in their steps, in the moments when they rise and begin to walk again. Think of Ruth, the young widow, who stood at a crossroads, with nothing certain ahead of her. Her past was gone. Her future was unclear. Her heart was heavy, with grief she didn't know how to carry. But she chose to walk, not because she felt strong, not because she felt ready, but because love pulled her forward. Where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. She walked beside Naomi, through dusty roads, through unfamiliar lands, through uncertainty that stretched farther than the horizon. And God, quiet, steady God, walked with her, not with thunder, not with miracles, but with provision that appeared one step at a time. A field, a protector, a redeemer, a future she never imagined. Ruth didn't see the whole story. She only saw the next step. But God saw the ending, and He guided her feet toward a hope she didn't yet know existed. Maybe tonight you need to know that the same God who guided Ruth is guiding you now, not with pressure, not with demands, but with presence, with gentleness, with a hand that holds yours as you take the next step. And while Ruth walked the roads of Bethlehem, centuries later, another traveler walked the roads of America. Florence Nightingale, the woman who carried a lamp through the darkest nights to care for the wounded, the forgotten, the unseen. People remember the lamp. They remember the hospitals. They remember the legacy. But they don't always remember the nights. The long, exhausting nights when she walked through dim corridors, whispering prayers for strength she didn't feel, for courage she didn't think she had, for God to guide her feet when her body trembled with fatigue. Nightingale once wrote that she never walked alone, that every step she took was accompanied by a presence she could not see, but always felt. She believed that God guides the feet of those who choose compassion, even when the path is steep, even when the night is long. And somehow, in the quiet, God always met her, not with ease, not with applause, but with a steady strength that rose with every step. Different stories, different centuries, same God, same faithfulness, same gentle presence that stands beside you now as the fire fades and the night deepens. So breathe again. Let the night soften your worries. Let the warmth loosen the tension you've been carrying quietly. You don't have to be Ruth. You don't have to be Nightingale. You don't have to be fearless. You don't have to be certain. You just have to be here, present, open, willing to take one small step with the one who walks beside you. Because Jesus isn't asking you to see the whole road. He's asking you to trust the one who walks it with you. And maybe tonight, you need to hear this, not as a command, not as a burden, but as a whisper meant only for you. Take my hand. I will lead you gently. So stay here a moment longer. Let the embers glow. Let the night breathe. Let your heart feel the quiet courage that comes from being held, not pushed. Because tonight, as the fire softens and the world grows still, Jesus doesn't just sit beside you. He rises, keeps your hand in His, and begins to walk at your pace, matching your steps, guiding you forward into a peace that moves with you long after the fire fades.